Okay, I'm feeling good about starting. Welcome to ELPCO's April Community Council meeting. My name is Christina Robb, and I am the chair of ELPCO. I wanted to do a little shout out to some people that have joined us tonight from our board. We have David Jones in the room. You want to say something so it will look at you? We also have Alicia in the room. And we have Alan in the room, who's actually been helping us a lot with the flooding. So we have an honorary board member. We have Marnie Chandler in the room.
Hello.
And then on our Zoom call, we have Jeanette, who is going to be joining the board soon, once she's sat in on her 3 important meetings, and Michael Alosi. Hi, Michael. More people are coming in person, so it's welcome. Hi. Okay, so with that brief introduction, towards the end of the meeting, there's going to be a little bit of a some ELPCO business. So we'll talk a little bit more with our board members towards the end of the meeting. But right now we're waiting for Salt Lake City Fire Department Station number 5. They're the first people on our agenda tonight. And we just kind of let them talk when they get here. So since they're not here yet, we're going to move right on to, Detective Samuel Follows sends his regards. He is in training this week, so we will see him again in May. And in the meantime, if you have questions about crime reports or any crime issues that are coming up in ELPCO, and you want to reach out sooner, go ahead and please contact us at elpcoslc@gmail.com whenever you need to. So we're going to move right on to the Public Utilities Director, Laura Briefer. We're so excited you're here. Also in the room are some of her staff. So we'll have Laura go ahead and introduce the staff, and we'll hold the questions until after she's done telling us all about what we need to know about flooding. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And it's great to be here and see all of you and everybody online. I don't know where it looks like I'm looking right now. I'm looking at people around the table and an owl. So
you're looking good, Laura. I can see it perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I did bring some of our key staff here who have been instrumental in sort of our spring runoff preparation and flood control, and also during the response at Wasatch Hollow. So we have our stormwater engineer, Mike Guyman, who knows the system inside and out and has been preparing contingency plans and lots of great analysis. I don't have all my staff that are instrumental here, but I'll tell you a little bit about some of the expertise we have on staff. We have an in-house hydrologist. We've also contracted with a hydrologist who's had 30 years with the National Weather Service and had since retired, and called me up a couple of years ago and said he was bored. And I said, well, I have some things you can help with. So he's Brian McInerney is on our staff for this runoff event as well, and just brings a wealth of knowledge. Jesse Stewart, our deputy director, who is just so great at putting all of these pieces together and doing a lot of our analysis. And then we have a whole operations and maintenance team that are responsible for looking at the built part of the drainage infrastructure, as well as Salt Lake County Flood Control, who's a jurisdictional partner with us in runoff and flood control management. We also have on our team people from other divisions of our department. We have a very large department. We handle drinking water, stormwater, sanitary sewer, and street lighting. We have close to 500 employees. And for this runoff season, to increase capacity of our staff, we've been able to pull people from different divisions of our department to help us with things like stream assessments. We have a stream team that's out there 24/7 looking at all of the infrastructure in the streams. And then last but not least, we have emergency management, and we have Captain Carter here. Actually, I should say he's not last but not least. There's one other person. I know I'm missing people.
Chloe right now.
So Captain Carter is essential in the emergency operations center, or the ECC, emergency communications center. And, you know, that's really important for an organized preparation and response because we work within a standardized system called incident command system. So Captain Carter's been really amazing on so many fronts, logistics and the fire department in general. And then Chloe Maroney is here with us in the room today too. She's public utilities, communications, and engagement manager. And her role is to bring together a lot of information that is being collected. So outreach we do with the community, when we receive community feedback, Chloe processes that and we respond as quickly as we can. Also just getting information. We have a lot of questions from the community about, you know, will we know if we need to be concerned? Will we know if flooding is imminent? Will we know the status of the infrastructure? And so through Chloe's office and through what's called the Joint Information Center, which is part of the Emergency Communications Center, we are processing information and putting information out. And she's been doing an incredible job and is very busy. So thank you for coming today. So we've, you know, just sort of in general, and actually one thing as part of our Emergency Communications Center is on almost a daily basis, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, Public Utilities puts together a daily report of our observations and what's coming up. And then that gets also translated into an incident IAP, incident action plan for emergency management. So that keeps everyone on our team and the mayor and you know, everyone informed about what the current status is on a very, very regular basis. So in general, right now, with respect to runoff, of course, we're still monitoring conditions. We're monitoring real-time runoff. Alan and I were just talking about stream gauges, and that's like, honestly, I check that quite frequently, along with the 7-day weather forecast, because temperature and weather have a lot of impacts, and we can't control the weather and temperature, so we're kind of always trying to figure out what's happening next and how that fits in with the models that we look at. So part of our monitoring is models through the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center through the National Weather Service that has a regularly updated forecast of what are the probabilities of different types of peak flow. There is also through that's through NWS, and then Colorado Basin River Forecast Center has forecasts of actually how much water is contained in the snowpack overall. So, and then there's some other data sources we're looking at too. So a lot of information and data that we're constantly updating and monitoring. Another part of our monitoring is actually going out and field checking things. So we have our runoff experts, our hydrologists that I just talked about before, and a lot of our crews that are out there looking at the system. So for instance, our hydrologists are actually up higher in the watersheds, looking at what's happening with the snowpack and the readiness of the snowpack to start running off at different elevations. And that's something that we can use to augment the actual models, the models that we're seeing from the federal agencies. We also have crews that are out 24/7, our stream teams. And what they're doing is monitoring each of the stream systems for the city, including the built part of the infrastructure. So that number one, as we're ramping up into runoff, higher runoff, they have institutional knowledge of what the stream has been looking like up to a certain point. So they know if there's a change in the conditions, they can understand that change in conditions and report back. But also, you know, like pinch points on the system. So that would be where the streams are channeled into culverts underneath roads, for instance. That's a natural constraint on the system. Or when the overall stream flow is channeled underground into a pipeline before it goes to the Jordan River. So they're looking at, you know, sort of that nexus of where the natural infrastructure and the built infrastructure are meet. And then also looking further upstream. So for instance, monitoring for debris that could become entrained into a stream system and bring down potential obstructions into the built system. So that's happening in an ongoing manner. We're also monitoring public feedback and responding to questions and requests for assistance. So for instance, you know, there's a large, this isn't in ELPCO's district, but there's the large Temple Square construction project. And they wanted to get an idea of what their risks might be and what kind of mitigation that they could put in place to protect that project should water come up above the storm drains in North Temple, because that's the city creek drainage. So those are some examples. I'm sure I've missed some details in there because there's a lot right now, a lot of moving parts. The areas of greatest concern for us right now, because of the quantity of snow remaining, the models and our field inspections, our City Creek and Parley's Creek. There's just a lot of snow in those watersheds. And so we are focusing a lot on those. In Parley's Creek, which would impact ELPCO, because Parley's Creek runs through your community, mostly when it becomes piped on 1300 South at State Street. That is actually something that we can control better because we have upstream reservoirs. And so we've been actively releasing water from the Mountain Dell, Little Dell system to create capacity upstream from us, so that we reduce the pressure on the system during higher snow melts. We can capture that runoff upstream. Sugar House Park has been closed in part because of that management. We've been working very closely with Salt Lake County, who manages the park. And you know, the closure is for safety purposes, because we're now operating Sugar House Park as a detention basin, and water might come up above the road, and we want it's closed to vehicles, not to everybody. And Mike, just jump in if there's anything you want to add.
This is great.
Or anybody on my team.
I would love to move this chair so that the owl can actually see Mike.
That's your preference.
Yes. So I would love to have him join
No.
us.
Yeah, come on in, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so weather, we're getting a lot of questions about weather because we're coming into another warming trend. We did put out a press release today to help provide some information proactively that we know that it's warming, and we've stepped up our monitoring and all of our water management. And based on the modeled forecasts, it looks like our system can handle what the flows that are expected to come off through this warming period over the next few days. That said, you know, I always want to put in a caveat that there are things we can't control. That, you know, the rapid warming, whether debris comes down and causes another blockage on the system that we have to respond to. So, but I feel like we are doing everything we can to mitigate the risks that we anticipate with respect to that. So, sandbags, so this is part of sort of mitigation, overall mitigation. So I mentioned earlier that Mike works on some contingency planning. What that looks like is kind of worst case scenario planning. So at the pinch points in the system, if water flow should exceed what that capacity is, what we would want to do is divert that water through the other part of the storm drain system, which is actually the street and the curb and gutter. And so we want to have a plan in place at those points to say, this is where we want to stage equipment and sandbags or flood barriers in order to create a pathway for the water to flow. So we have staged out of a lot of caution, an abundance of caution, we've staged sandbags at various locations in the city where deployment can be fast and relatively easy. In addition to sandbags that we just have stored in roll-off trucks that can be driven to an area. So we have sandbags in places. We also have, there are still areas where people can go fill their own bags if they want, or bags for their own properties. There's one at Rosewood Park right now, and of course the county, Salt Lake County Flood Control has a number of those facilities as well. Lots of volunteers are still helping out. I think Bryant Junior High is looking as filling sandbags right now for us at one in May next week. So I have a lot of detail about each stream system, but I think right here would be a good point to stop and see what kind of detail you want.
Okay,
If you have questions.
Where are the connection points in the ELPCO area?
In the ELPCO area, so those would be, so that would be the areas where the streams flow into the drainage system. So where Red Butte and Immigration Creek enter the pipe system at near here at Liberty Park, 7th East, and they flow down 1300 South. That is, you know, once it gets piped, that is the constraint, and we have a good idea of what that flow is, that constraint flow is when it's non-pressurized, but we also have ways to pressurize the system to increase that capacity. We also have a bypass that we can actually take both Immigration and Red Butte Creek flows out of 1300 South to make space for Parley's Creek when it gets into 1300 South storm drain. And that is at 500 East and then dumps into 900 South to the Jordan River. That's something that wasn't in existence in 1983, 84. Was it 2006 that was the 5th East diversion?
We're also really cognizant of where Red Butte crosses 9th East,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We're cognizant of 11th East, and you can see that as
Where it
you're on
goes under that.
11th East.
Yeah.
We've also inspected and we've looked at 13th East Culvert right when it comes in.
So I'm going to ask a couple of questions because actually Alan has been representing ELPCO on the flooding issues. And, you know, Alan has been an incredible volunteer for ELPCO. So thank you for doing this, reaching out and making sure that we have as much information as we need as we go along. So some of the things that Alan has, you know, we've flyered the entire neighborhood. We have let people know that we're looking at where the creek daylights. But there is a little bit of dissonance between the meters in Miller Park and then what's actually happening when it daylights down there in the back of the ward, where it gets really close on 11th East. That's one
Talking
question.
about the gauges, the Salt Lake County gauges. that
Yeah.
were-
So
Right,
we
so-
did notice it went down really low.
Yeah, there's two gauges that we're familiar with, right? We've got up in Fort Douglas
Mhm.
and there's the USGS gauge. And then
What's a gauge?
Sorry.
What is a gauge?
Thanks. I apologize. The gauge is just it's a mechanical feature that is placed into the creek that allows us to know the level of the water in the creek at any given time, and it sends us data right now every 3 minutes. And so it says, hey, the water is at this level right now, and from that water level we're able to determine how much flows in the creek, and that those and as far as the dissonance is concerned, that there is, the county maintains numerous gauges throughout throughout Salt Lake County Flood Control.
Mhm.
And that informs a lot of what we're monitoring. That being said, that the gauge in Miller Park has a history of being less accurate than we'd like it to be.
Okay,
That being
That's
said,
good to know.
there's some
Yeah.
really we get really good accuracy out of that Fort Douglas.
Mhm.
And there are some controls that we have in place in between Fort Douglas and say where we get into the pipe at about 850 east. But right now we're not really exercising any of those controls. And so the gauge level up at Fort Douglas is pretty representative of what the flows that we're seeing.
I did forget to mention on Redview Creek that we also released water from Redview Creek Reservoir. So you might, if you were watching gauges, you might have seen some additional flow for a period of time. And then it comes back down.
That's great.
And part of the reason why we release water, I think we have like 100 acre-feet of storage there. So if we do see, we're not anticipating a really sharp runoff flow peak based on models of Redview, but if that does happen, we can shave that peak off a little bit by closing the down gate and letting some water.
So Alan, I know that you get into it in depth, but for the purpose of this meeting, do you have your answers covered?
Well, I think that's helpful. I've been watching both of those gauges, and I just look at the cubic feet measure, and for the most part, they've been tracking pretty closely, and today they weren't. And they were sort of, I mean, the one in Miller Park is running a quarter the level of the other one, which I was
And
just
normally that would indicate that we're either doing something
Yeah.
to manage the flows, or there's a constriction system somewhere.
Mhm.
Today.
I think it's just a
that's not
bad
the case.
Well, and we've tried to go through
Yes.
those types of, like, for instance, not too long ago, we had a weird anomaly measurement on Harley's Creek and Hidden Hollow, which made it look like there was a constriction that was worrisome. So we turned down the releases from the Mountain Dell and Little Dell Reservoir system to reduce flows until we could figure out, what exactly was happening. And it turned out to be an error gauge. So.
Yes, so, and sorry, I just didn't hit it. Yeah. Okay. So we do have a question from the chat, so we'll take that. And then I think that I have one follow-up question. Michael Olosi asks, can we put maps of these creeks in the chat? So we can put the website that you,
Yeah, I would say there's a really good map already online, and it's on the Salt Lake County Flood Control's page. It's the floodplain map, but it shows all the streams, and you can also devise from that map where they flow into the pipe system.
okay,
And that's slco.to/flood prep, I think.
That's really close, and if it doesn't, I
Flood control
it's,
team of one point map, that one.
Yeah,
and that's what
Got you.
FEMA
Yeah.
overlay.
is that the one on the county
and
website?
the sections of Redview Creek within ELPCO that are piped
Uh-huh.
do show up.
yeah,
They do,
we've
yeah.
seen the map. We wanted to put it in the chat because we use that chat. We've been following it really closely. And I'll just tell you why. The neighbors in that area, obviously to the east of where it leaves the gully, and then goes under McClellan. There's a tight constriction, and then it daylights again at 900 east, and the folks, especially east of there, are concerned. So we've just been trying to keep them updated, is take all the information that we're getting from you. And I really appreciate what you said at the city council meeting on the west side. That was very helpful. We're just trying to get as much information out to those folks right there as
Sure.
possible. So we
And-
appreciate it.
And if they haven't already reached out to us,
Mhm.
we're definitely happy to work very closely with them. On Redview Creek, we worked closely with some other neighbors, like the Garden Park Ward
Word.
and JT Martin, who's like a little bit upstream from there, just, you know, to. First of all, if we needed to have any kind of mitigation or contingency plan there, I think we have that as well.
Yeah, and those are ready.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I feel like we're good as far as information, and we know that we're, like, we reach out to the garden park board to make sure where they're at in case we need to put anything up on Facebook or, you know, call people or check in. The one question I think that was unique that we didn't expect was when the storm drains on 8th East did get plugged from when immigration flowed
When
over
the
there.
lids came up.
Yeah,
water
and
came
there
out.
was geysers and I got about 20 phone calls because it was in the middle of the night. And the debris field was large. So that's an underground debris field. Is that right? It's like, it's the storm drain that's clogged underground.
It actually wasn't clogged
Oh.
underground. What happened in that situation is the storm drain became surcharged, which means that it exceeded the capacity and it was coming out up.
Oh, okay.
That's not necessarily a bad thing
No.
because many people don't know that the curb and gutter and roadway is also part of the designed
Mhm.
storm drain system. So if it comes up on the road, that's okay, so long as it's not hurting property and so long as there are safety measures in place. When that happened, of course, we deployed sandbags because we weren't quite sure.
We noticed.
Especially, well, and especially the wild part there for us was the plug in the Wasatch Hollow detention
Right.
basin.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had such a high runoff peak that evening on, which we don't expect to see that peak again this
Was
year.
that last summer?
No, this was when the Wasatch Hollow flooding occurred.
just-
Yeah, April
Yeah,
12th.
like just
Yeah.
3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, last summer, the.
Yeah,
Blew up.
and that's
And I was
really,
driving along there at night,
yeah,
and maybe it was more than a year ago,
I know.
but it's, well, maybe it's a good thing that they popped. It's a bad thing if you drove over it.
It is, well, and so there are two different things, like two different kinds of runoff events too that we're talking about here. So both an intense storm runoff and make that happen, as well as an intense peak on the stream. And there are ways for us to plan to control that in a stream runoff situation where we actually have we do two things. You might see one is less elegant than the other. One is just driving a truck on top of the storm drain. That helps pressurize the water, pushes the system. So if you see a public utilities truck sitting on top of the storm drain. And another is to actually put a barrier around, like a stacking sandbags around the manhole cover, and the water might come up and then pressurize. So if you see that happening though, a call into our 24-hour dispatch would be helpful, because that helps us understand where we are having a lot of pressure on the system, and as I described, the different ways we can manage water through the system that might mitigate that pressure.
Great.
And
So we have been giving out the emergency number
Okay.
and just letting people know if they see anything, call.
Okay.
But don't use that number unless they see something. So can you just tell us real quick the number they should call if they just have questions?
Yeah, is that you, Chloe?
Okay, that's fine. Okay, good.
Well, it's best to call me on my cell, I would say, because I'm pretty much running around all the time. And I have to look it up because I just forgot what it is. Okay, so 801-702-0801.
Great.
And yeah, I mean, I always have it on me and I'll
Excellent.
always answer it.
And she's very nice to talk to, so it's really great.
I think you could also call the Salt Lake County Flood Control number too.
Okay.
That's a good one to call as well. And that one, 46801-468. It's on that website.
Especially if it's associated with Deep Creek.
Yeah.
They're going to be first responders.
Okay, that's great to know.
Yeah, if it's associated with a creek and we get a call, our first call is to the county.
Right, and that's not to say that we'll be right there with them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Laura, thank you, and Laura's team, thank you so much for coming, everyone. We're gonna move on because we have Councilman Mono up and he's gonna have to
Can-
leave.
Could I ask a question though fast?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you were in the chat. Go ahead, Michael.
I raised my hand. So anyway, I just have a question. I'm actually at Sugar House Park right now. It's kind of like madness. I mean, it's definitely flowing. I guess my question is like, what telltale signs that we know we're
We can't
about to
hear
have
you.
flooding, so we can like protect our house? I'm not as worried about the storm. Let me try and move. You can't hear me at all?
No,
Sound effects.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay,
See
if you can type it in the chat and I'll read it aloud for you.
Can you type it
hear
in?
Yes.
I can hear it.
Yes, no.
Right.
Okay.
It's
never mind.
breaking up too much. Why don't you type it in the chat?
I think that's how my kids hear me sometimes.
Yeah. I meant
That's
for
my kids
that's
hear me.
definitely on my side.
Yeah.
The Charlie Brown.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a hard thing. But if Mike comes back, we will absolutely take his question and then we will correspond with you and answer it to him. He's one of our board members, so we'll absolutely
Oh,
pass
it's in the
that on.
chat.
Oh.
What are the telltale signs we are about to experience flooding?
Well.
Just say rising water.
You know, I
Did we
I
cover
think,
this?
rising water is definitely, I mean, really, there are a few different things that you might see. One is a very rapid peak of rising water at a certain location. So we're not expecting there to be like widespread catastrophic flooding across the city. What we're looking for is localized flooding. And so if you see something like rapidly rising water, or water starting to cover a roadway that doesn't look like we had planned to put it there, storm drain lids popping, those are things that we would definitely want to hear about. Chances are we might already be hearing about it and knowing about it, but just call that emergency number. I kind of to just end, I really want to thank the ELPCO Community Council and really all of the community councils that we've been interacting with, and all the members of the public who have provided us feedback. And that ongoing conversation is really important. And this might sound a little corny, but to me, it just feels like the city and its residents are coming together to collectively address a challenge, and it's a really amazing thing to see. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
More, can I tag on to that for 1 second?
Yeah, Captain Carter.
Just to kind of segue off of what Laura was just saying, like as far as our role with emergency management, we do have some volunteering coordination that goes on up there. We saw a huge community turnout with Immigration Creek, and so if anybody who was a part of that, thank you for that. And it was great. Everybody came in, filled sandbags, they just jumped in and went for us. I would just say, like, continue to look for those opportunities volunteer. We do have 2 sandbag filling locations, but also to catch onto our social media, whether public utilities, emergency management, something like that. Because if we do have another event, we will be putting out over social media quite a bit of information. Some of that will be volunteering. We want to make sure we have a coordinated effort to volunteering, so we don't just have people showing up. With the storm drain lids popping and things like that, we had somebody get into the water and almost go into a storm drain because they couldn't see it with the water. And so we just want to make sure that we keep an eye on safety. I guess it's in my fire department plug today as well. But keep an eye on safety, just making sure we have that coordinated effort with the community. We certainly appreciate and really need the help. We want to make sure we attack it the way.
Great.
Great
If I could
point.
just add something too from the communication standpoint. So in terms of social media, so you're going to see the same message shared on eReady SLC, so Salt Lake City Emergency Management, Public Utilities, and Salt Lake City Government, and also Salt Lake City Mayor. So you're gonna see it's the same messaging. So wherever you see it, I mean, know that you're getting the same, all of the same information.
Coordinated
Yeah.
information.
And a note from ELPCO on that is that we also get a direct press release and a heads up from the mayor's office. So they send it out to us directly and ask
That's
us to
great.
also put it on our website or our Facebook, which we've been doing. So that's very
That's
helpful.
great, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have to wait to see it on our Facebook or Instagram before we can pop it up there. So, all right, any more questions? Are we good? Well, thank you.
Thank
And,
you
you know,
so much.
we'll go ahead and let you scoot out of the room so that you don't have to.
And hi, Councilmember Mono.
I was like, is that right?
Everyone's saying hi to
Hi,
you.
Laura. Hi, Director Briefer.
Yeah.
Thank you, as always, for that great information.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Are you having to take a lot of throat lozenges because you're just saying it so often? Again, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Councilman Mono, welcome to the
Thank
meeting.
you.
Going to be loud for 1 second and then we'll go ahead and give you the floor.
No worries. Can everyone hear me there okay?
We're good now.
Great. This is actually the first time I've been on this side of a Zoom with an owl, and it's really interesting to watch how the things move around.
Does it make you
So,
feel more included or is it kind of weird?
it's a little weird, but I can see the whole room and it just like decides who it wants to show. So that's interesting. Good evening. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I have another conflict. But thank you for everyone that came to the town hall earlier, a few days ago. That was wonderful. Thank you, Christina, of course, for all your help with that. We have the biggest thing that the council is working on right now is that the mayor will be presenting her recommended budget on May 2nd. So that's this coming Tuesday. And we will then be into our budget season. So the way our government system works is the mayor presents a balanced budget, and then the council has final say as to what of the mayor's budget gets included or if there's any tweaks to that. So it's a really good time to engage with the city because we go through every single department and some of the divisions as well individually, and hear exactly what each of them are working on and what things might change this year. But it's a good way to get like a really broad overview of basically everything that the city does. We already started with our library and airport budgets. Those are separate funds and they have their own separate budget. The library is a separate property taxing entity, and the airport is funded entirely by, it's an enterprise fund, so it's funded by the airlines and fees and the FAA grants and things like that. So we already did those. We do some of those ones early, just because they have their own board that reviews their budget and makes direction, and then it comes to us for final approval. But we will be starting that on Tuesday. So please join, pay attention. If there's anything specific, you can feel free to reach out to our office and we can let you know when specific departments, like if you're really interested in public lands and parks, we can let you know when that one will be briefed. And then there's at least two times when people can come give comment on the budget. And then of course we have every formal meeting, you'll have general comment that you can come and speak about anything that you'd like, but at this time, speaking about the budget makes a lot of sense if there's anything specific. The things that we don't do right now, so during this budget, we will set the CIP, which is Capital Improvement Program. Did ELPCO apply for capital CIP grants this year?
Not ELPCO, but we did provide feedback and letters of favorable
Support.
letters for the Liberty Park
Oh,
Green.
great.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yes. So that one, so the mayor does present a recommendation of which ones to fund. That was not on the list this year. But we during our budget season, so for the next month, we will just set the amount that goes into CIP. We don't actually do a final approval of which projects go in until later in the summer. But if there are things that are of high interest, check out the list that has been released and see if they were recommended. If the mayor's recommended it for funding, it's a good chance that it will get funded. But every year there's a couple things that will get tweaked. Like I think last year, if I remember correctly, it was last year, people from the tennis community came out and really asked us to make sure we fund some tennis court replacements. And so we moved some money around in order to do that. So there will be a few things that we can change, and those are really based on what the community tells us is important and what maybe the board and the mayor and the council didn't know was of such importance to the community. So that's really the main thing that's going on. There are a few larger land use items that we are currently in the middle of considering. One is the homeless resource text amendments. So that's basically the process for which new homeless resources could get cited in the city. To my knowledge, no one is currently investigating any specific spots about a homeless resource center. But for 1 year, we had a moratorium on that so that we could get a little bit more community input. The major change is that instead of it just going through the planning commission, the city council will have to weigh in anytime a new homeless resource center is placed anywhere in the city. What I like about that is that since the city council controls budgetary decisions and has influence through all different divisions and departments, if a homeless resource center is proposed and going into a neighborhood, we can at the same time advocate for funding for things like street lighting or facade improvements or better security upgrades, whereas previously where it was just a planning commission decision, that those conversations may not have been able to happen at the same time. So that's my hope for the new ordinance. And then we're also reviewing an ordinance for downtown building heights, which would increase some of the allowable building heights in the downtown core, but also put requirements for street level activation and ground floor transparency. Right now you go along 4th South and you see a lot of parking garages that line the entire ground floor. We're trying to avoid that and get actual shops and restaurants and things like that to activate our streets in return for some higher building heights. So those are kind of the two big ones we're reviewing right now, and we could vote on both of them on Tuesday, unless there are council members that want to revisit them, or if we hear a lot from the community about any of those. Those are my updates for this week. That's what's on our plate right now. Any questions?
First questions from the room. Okay, I'm going to take the chat. I have a couple questions for you, Darren. Okay, I don't see any in the chat. So ELPCO has, well, first of all, I want to thank you for listening to us and our testimonies, both, for all of the things we've been working on, ADUs and every single thing that's for the last 3 months. I really feel heard, and, essentially we've been reaching out to the community, trying to engage them, to engage us so we can be more representative of them. So, it seems, it's just very great. So thank you for that. But additionally, I've been working with engineering on alleys because that's a huge complaint. And we realized that alleys are funded differently than street repairs. So potholes in alleys are severe after the storm. City Council, do you have any suggestions to us about how to make an ask for to fund alley repair?
It's a little bit, so the good news is there is funding for alleyway repair.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a new system. So with Mayor Mendenhall is the first mayor to suggest, and we're the first council to approve a dedicated amount of funding for alleyway repair in, I think, ever, actually. It's not a ton, but there is still some money in that account. There was one alleyway over on Major Street in District 5 that was a really big problem.
Right.
And the the mayor's office, the administration was moving forward with repairs to that. We as the council added money to that alleyway so that the alleyway fund would not be immediately depleted. So there is still money. That's one thing that I will be looking at in the mayor's recommended budget once that becomes public, is what amount of that is in there for alleyways. Hopefully there's more in there. And right now, the best person would be either reach out to me or Tim Cosgrove in the mayor's office. Seems to be the one that has been running point on most of the alleyway projects. But there's not a formalized system yet. It's sort of a pilot project of what's the best way to use that money. So that's good and bad. The good part is that since it's not formalized yet, there's not like a wait until October and apply and you'll find out in a year later. It's a little bit more, if there's an issue and a known alleyway that needs some help, just let us know and we can move that money a little bit quicker because there's not a formalized process. Eventually, I think there could and should be a little bit more organization to that. But alleyways actually don't affect every district the same. They exist in most districts, but vast majority happen in District 5 and then up in the avenues in District 3.
So, we have been hearing a lot about the great repairs and safety things that have been happening in the alleys. And I think that this request is just simply pothole repair. So are they using alley funds for pothole repair?
So potholes, sometimes those will get done. So there's been a lot of potholes being refilled. And I think that those can be done with the same streets crews that repair potholes. Potholes is not a reconstruction. It's just a maintenance, considered a maintenance. So our streets crews that just maintain the streets can actually do that. And so those potholes, I would put them on the app. If you're not getting a response there, let me know and I think we can get those taken care of a little bit quicker because it's just our sort of maintenance crews. It's not like a major reconstruction that requires a budget.
That's so great to hear. Thank you.
Sometimes things look like a pothole, but they're actually too big to be repaired like a pothole. And in that case, it would require some things. But if it's if it's truly a pothole, we should be able to fix that.
Okay, yeah. So this season's potholes are definitely more like craters than potholes. So it's good that you mentioned that. All right, thank you. I'm gonna ask one more time if anybody else has some comments. So we'll let you go if nobody does.
Thank you.
Good. All right, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, up next on our agenda is Joshua Roballo from the mayor's office. Are you with us, Josh? Hey,
Yeah, can you hear me?
absolutely. Welcome.
Thanks. Hold on. I'm sitting in my car too. So I'm actually at the Northwest Community Center right now. I was attending the Fair Park Community Council meeting, which is in District 1, which I also cover as a liaison. And usually I go between the two of them and go to both in person if I can. But there was an interesting discussion today at the community council here about a community garden along the Jordan River that you may have read about. It's been a bit in the news lately. So there's been a discussion here about that with the community members. So I was here to monitor and accompany that. But I wanted to, first of all, just say thanks to anyone, if there's anyone here who participated in the day of service on Earth Day this past Saturday along the Jordan River. That had a great turnout. They had 1,200 volunteers along the river cleaning up and art projects, tree plantings, a lot of different things with community partners. And then, of course, on Monday, the joint meeting with the mayor and council member, great turnout. And thanks to Christina and also to the other councils who helped in organizing that and making it run smoothly with so many people. It's not an easy task, so great job on that. And then with regard to our public utilities, you guys had that briefing from Laura Briefer, so I'm going to skip that section of what I was going to talk about. And then the only other thing was what Councilmember Mono already mentioned about the budget season coming up. the mayor this coming Tuesday giving her budget speech, just to tune in for that. I don't know if everyone usually turns into city council meetings all the time, but this would definitely be an interesting one to accompany on this Tuesday night when the mayor gives that speech. So I'm happy to take any questions from our office, and I'm going to put my contact info in the chat for anyone who needs to reach out to us about any issue, and also continue to report things on the SLC mobile app and reach out to us if you have any issues with that and questions on reports. And yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the room? Any questions from Zoom land? I don't see any, Josh. No, but thank you so much for helping us with the District 5 Town Hall. You were very supportive and it turned out well, I think. So appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
And I
well,
hope to be there with you in person next month. Thanks.
So just a note on that from ELPCO to our constituents and the board members in the room is budget season is really exciting at the city council. So it is a good time to go to city council meetings or at least watch them. You know, they're all fully recorded and you can watch them actually live. But if you haven't yet tuned in, it's exciting because you get to really see what, you know, money, right? What they're actually wanting to spend money on. So priorities are really shown through budget season. So to me, that's exciting. You don't have to just listen to the banter on what people support or don't support. You really get to see how much they're willing to throw up, how much support. So that kind of thing is really exciting. Maybe not to you.
No, that's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is very, yeah. So I just wanted to add that. And now we're moving on to NeighborWorks SLC. Yay, and we haven't met. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kimberly Pesowitz. I've been with NeighborWorks for a little over a year now. I'm actually the loan processor there, but we all help out with the community. I just want to let you guys know about an event we have coming up called Paint Your Heart Out. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we'll send a team out and then free of charge, they'll paint the exterior of a home. And it's elderly, a veteran, or disabled, or anyone that has a disabled member in their household. They'll come out, and then that is going to be on August 12th. So if you have any friends, family, or neighbors, please have them go to our website. It's nwsaltlake.org. And there's an application they can fill out. And it doesn't have to be in Salt Lake City. It can be, I know we've done one in South Jordan, we've done a few in Murray, so really anywhere.
Okay. So again, another note from ELPCO is that actually NeighborWorks got its start in ELPCO way back when they first started. So yeah, so Maria Garcia, who heads up NeighborWorks, is somebody who is a really positive force in the community and in that, you know, housing advocacy. So we are going to invite Maria back to give us the history of hold on, I have to admit somebody. The history of NeighborWorks and, you know, how it got its roots here and how it spread all over the city at another meeting. So we appreciate you for giving us that information. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Oh, it's been fun. I love going into these.
Great. Okay, so any questions from the chat?
No, but all of the last three issues have been linked in the chat, so you can find links to the virtual council meetings if you want access. It gives you all the dates and all the information, and Paint Your Heart Out, both the homepage and the actual Paint Your Heart Out.
Great, thank you, Lisa. All right, so we're going to move on to Olivia Hodge from the Salt Lake City Recorder's Office, and she's going to tell us all about a recent city council decision to do ranked choice voting. Is she here?
Yep.
Oh, wait, I think she's online, right?
Yes.
Yay, Olivia, welcome.
I was just having trouble unmuting myself. Sorry about that.
You are. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be speaking with you guys tonight. Thank you for having me.
Mhm.
So a little bit on my background is I was in the Lieutenant Governor's office for about 2 years previous to coming to Salt Lake, and I've been here for about a year now, and I love it. And I'm so glad that they have me. Can I share a slideshow via Zoom? Can I present?
Yep, let me get the. You should be ready to share right now. I
Okay.
have, let me know if you have problems.
I will. Give me just 1 second. There we go. Oh, okay. It's not letting me, but that is totally fine. So I'm
Well,
just gonna
just give me 1 second. Let me
sounds good.
try it again.
Okay. There we go. All right. Can everybody see?
Ta-da!
Okay, perfect. Okay. So for the 2023 municipal election, the following seats are up. We have Mayor, City Council District 2, City Council District 4, and City Council District 6. And with this also being a mayoral race, all Salt Lake City residents will be voting. So it's going to be a good time. So how did this come about? So in 2018, the Utah State Legislature made RCV possible for municipal elections by passing HB 35, the Municipal Alternative Voting Methods Pilot Project, which is a very, very long name. So we just use RCV for short because it makes everything a little bit easier. So the pilot allows cities the option to use RCV for elections between 2019 through 2026. RCV is unique because of the counting structure that it employs. So if a voter's first preferred candidate is eliminated, then the voter's second preferred candidate is included in the second round of votes. So this counting continues until one candidate claims the majority, which is over 50% of the votes, and they win the election. Ballots are printed with the candidates' names listed, and Salt Lake City voters can rank up to 10 ranking positions. So they can rank up to 10 candidates. Voters will rank them by filling in the bubble in the appropriate column with the preferred ranking. So this is an example. So to fill out your ballot, you will fill in one bubble per column. So for example, if this was a real voter, they would have picked candidate A as their first choice, candidate B for their second choice, candidate C for their third choice, and candidate D for their fourth choice. You will mark no more than one oval in each column. So a lot of questions that we get asked is, why did the council vote to do this? And there are many reasons as to why they voted to do this. One of them is that ranked choice voting gives the voter a larger say in the final candidate, as they are ranked and eliminated based on the overall ranking of all voters. In races with more than 2 candidates, voters can choose to rank the candidates based on their preference, which stretches their vote, and if their preferred candidate gets eliminated. Next, generally, ranked choice voting saves municipalities money due to the choice to not hold a primary election. Both elections can end up being pretty costly. And it generally encourages a more civil campaign for candidates, because candidates are better served by working together and create coalitions and talk to voters who support other candidates. Now I'm going to show a video from Salt Lake County, which kind of breaks it down and does a really, really awesome job.
Olivia, is there sound?
Oh, there should be sound, but I guess that there's not. So I might just share a link to that does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I will share
Throw it
a
in
link
the
to that video.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're all waiting for.
Sorry, I was just like sitting here like listening to it. Like Salt Lake County did such a good job with this video. Like I'll put it in the chat, and I'll also put just Salt Lake County's website in general has a lot of good resources. So if your address isn't current, to update that, just a lot of different things.
Great.
I'm gonna go to the next slide then. Let me go. Oh, there we go. So for you guys what are wondering what this changes in the process, it eliminates the need for a primary election, like I mentioned earlier, which puts the focus solely on the general election, which will be the same date, which is on November 7th. This also changes the declaration of candidacy period for potential candidates, and it moves it from the beginning of June to August 8th through 15th. One other thing to note is because cities elect to participate in ranked choice voting, there are some cities in Salt Lake County and in other counties in the state that might not be participating. Therefore, these cities might still have a primary election. So if you hear of other people getting a ballot or in the summer and you're like, why didn't I get my ballot for my primary? There's no primary. Don't worry. Everything is great. Everything's fine. We're just a little bit different. So that's all that I have for you today. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm more than happy to take any questions or anything else that you guys may have for me.
Great.
What-
So are there any questions from the virtual group? I don't see anything there. How about from the room?
I just had one question.
Yeah.
Is this set up in the system so that you can get a result quickly? I know some other jurisdictions have had real problems getting timely results.
So the only thing that really changes as far as results go is in a traditional voting method, you can usually kind of get a general idea at the end of the night. So for example, on November 7th, you can kind of look and say, this is who's probably going to win the election. But with this, that does change a little bit. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't turn it off. That does change that a little bit where people can't really know until the canvas is completed, which doesn't change anything else in the process. That is always how it is. When the canvas, that's the final results. It just makes it a little bit more difficult for poll watching. So did that answer? Sorry.
How long does the canvas take?
So the canvas is the same period as it normally is. The only way that the canvas could be extended up to 1 week is if there is the need for a recount, and that recount threshold is linked in the code, and I can throw that in here as well. But that has not happened. That it's very unlikely that will happen. So the canvas should generally be when it normally would be. And those dates I also will I'll put in the chat. As that sounded terrible, I apologize. I will also put those dates in the chat and link to our website that has all of the dates for everything.
Great. Okay, any other questions? All right, Olivia, it's nice to meet you virtually. And we will look at your video and put up on our Facebook to share. I think it
First. And thank you guys so much for having me. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to chat with anyone. And thank you guys.
great. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so our final presenter of the night is Megan Leather. Megan, can you hear us?
I'm ready. I
Oh, you're also on.
did that so I could share.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So I met Megan yesterday. At Emerson Elementary, where they did a public open house on the 11th East reconstruction project. So we realized that this would be videotape that we could share with our constituents, but there was a great turnout. So welcome.
Yes, yeah, we had a great turnout yesterday. Thanks for having me back here. So I want to figure out how to share the screen.
Oh, I turned it off. Let me turn it back
know.
on for you.
Yeah. Share how we can do this. Okay. Let's see.
So once you get that up, you can go ahead and tell us what your position is and introduce your
Yes.
comrade here.
So, there's my card. Okay.
It's good.
You're
Yeah,
good,
you're
you're
good.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is really similar to the boards that were at the Meet the Contractor event last night. I'm the project engineer on the 11th East reconstruction project. This is Keegan. He works in transportation.
Yeah, I'm the community engagement side of transportation, so I'm the guy you're gonna want to reach out to in the future, so.
So I will say the design is finalized. There might be minor changes in the field as we get started with construction. So I'm just here to really let you know about the construction impacts, and if you guys have any questions about it, I'd love to answer them. So getting started, we have Back Construction Excavation. They're our contractor for this. They'll be subbing out some of the work, but they'll be on site every day. They were there last night. So a lot of people in the community were able to, meet the superintendent, and I think that was really helpful. Yeah, we're sharing my computer, you're good. So this is the overall work zone. We'll be starting up around Michigan Ave near 9th South. In general, moving south from there, our project limits are from the roundabout basically until Logan Avenue, which is just north of 17th South. We are going to be reconstructing the pavement, reconstructing any sidewalks that are currently broken, replacing curb and gutters, along with really exciting safety improvements like the raised intersection and some other traffic calming features. And then we are also restriping the road, so that will have some major changes. Here's a look at a typical section of the road. So this is what it will look like at the end. Construction parking will be much more restricted than at the end. That's something to keep in mind. And so here's project impacts. That's the new on-street parking locations along with bus stop adjustments, eliminating some stops and moving a few others, and some are remaining as they are. So that's on the
Yeah, I believe that's, yeah, that's.
okay. Here's a preliminary schedule. This is really general. This will give you a good idea of what you're going to see out there over the next 7 months or so. So construction on 11th East will be starting in mid-May. We're expecting to start around May 15th. That could change a little bit, but likely you'll see work in about 2.5 weeks. They're starting with the storm drain, and then with some overlapping work, they'll be doing the concrete work. So that includes sidewalks, curb and gutters, a lot of drive approaches will be replaced, and then they will be regrading the road and paving it. A lot of the roadway work will be starting later in the summer. The raised intersection at Harrison, that will be occurring while school's out. So the contractor's restricted to working on that side of the school calendar year. So that's about mid-June to mid-August. This is just some information about the funding for it. This is a bond project. So if you're familiar with the Funding Our Future bond, that money is going towards this project. And any additional questions, here's contact info. There's a hotline, an email address, and our website will be updated throughout construction. If you live within the project limits, you'll be getting notifications. And then there's additional notifications for, if your driveway approach in particular is going to be reconstructed, you have at least a 48-hour notice about any sort of access issues that are or restrictions. And then on top of that, we have the McClelland Trail and Neighborhood Street livability improvements that is being completed by the same contractor. So Beck is starting that on Monday, mostly. They just got their SWIP approval today. So it's been, first location's been staked out. So you might have seen some trucks out there if you live on Harrison. So we'll be starting at Harrison and moving south towards Bryan Avenue to complete those. And that's mostly just traffic calming elements. There's gonna be some landscaping and streetscape improvements along the trail. And that will take about 4 to 6 weeks they're expecting. So expect that to wrap up sometime in June.
Great.
Is that gonna wrap before they hit that section of 11? So you're,
Yeah.
those of us between 11 and 12 are stuck on both.
Right,
sides?
yeah, so they're likely is gonna be overlapping work, but not in the same area. So they're not gonna
Okay.
be all the way down to Harrison by the time, like, they're gonna be done with that entirely by the time they get that far south.
Okay.
So yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about that overlapping. This project, to be totally honest, very minor in comparison to 11th. So you're really not gonna notice this unless you live on one of these 6 streets. It's gonna be really minor. And then there's some other adjacent projects in the area, mostly down towards Sugar House, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of if you've tried to drive on Highland anytime recently. So here's just some info about those. I'm not directly involved, so if you have questions about those, I can pass it on to him or the project teams for those projects, if you have construction related questions. So yeah, if anyone has questions, let me know. Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Can I actually introduce David? David is our liaison from ELPCO to the 11th East project. He hasn't been made aware of this yet because it just recently happened 2 days ago where Lynn turned the project over. Lynn is no longer our contact.
Oh.
Now, David has been really great about communicating with Lynn and his team for months. This is the
Yeah.
new
Better than your land.
Mhm.
In a way, yeah. Yeah, so Lynn,
It's nice to meet you.
yes,
And,
Lynn and I have been
I-
working together since throughout design, but he's not really involved in construction so much.
My questions were, when you start near Michigan and do that work, will that be completed at some point before the south end is completed?
Are you talking about the Highland Drive project?
No.
Or just the
maybe
south
I
end
said
of
that
this?
wrong. So this project on
Yes.
1100 East,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna start near Michigan Avenue.
Mhm.
You'll do the storm drain. At some point, you'll repave and stripe it. Will that somehow be done before the south end of the project starts?
So,
Or will
Beck
you
is
just
planning to
redo
work, a block or two at a time. So they won't be, milling the entire street and repaving the entire, like, one half of the street, and then the other half, they'll likely do, half of these 2 blocks, and then the other half of those 2 blocks, and then move south.
Okay.
So it won't be a long work area at any one time. Unless, something comes up and they're gonna get to do that, but no, in general, they're gonna work, a block or 2 at a time and move throughout the project limits.
And what's the cost? How much?
Um,
is the
the-
city paying the contractor?
The construction cost for this is approximately 5.6 million. And that includes the storm drain work. So that's public utilities part of the project, and that, like, my guy was just here, so they were doing storm drain improvements in addition to our roadway project, and then the rest of that is, theirs is a little over $1 million, I think, for storm drain.
Hmm.
And then the rest of that is roadway and the safety improvements.
And are there gonna be stoplights at the Harrison crossing where the kids cross to school?
No, so there's no additional traffic lights with this project. We're adding a few RFBs. One of those is at Harrison. RFB is a rapid rectangular flashing beacon. So it's the crosswalk sign, you press the button, it flashes. It's really just to alert the drivers. It doesn't actually change traffic patterns. Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
are there any other pedestrian RFBs or?
Yeah, so those will be at Harrison, because that's the McClellan Trail connection, and then also at Kensington Avenue and Gale Avenue, because those are neighborhood byways or planned neighborhood byways. Yeah.
Well,
I believe it's those 3, right?
I don't know about Yale. I
Okay.
know that Kensington.
Okay,
Yeah, Kensington is for sure.
Yep.
And Harrison is. For
and I
sure, but
believe
didn't
Yale,
know
but
Yale
I can
was.
check on that.
That's interesting. That's news to me.
I
Yeah,
think it would be nice to have.
Okay,
that's interesting to know because we weren't aware of that, so. that'd be
okay,
great.
yeah, let me look into that. I could start that. But I know we have at least those 2 RFBs, and then we have bicycle ramps also at a few of these. And that's for, for child's biking in the street, but they're crossing 11th East, which is much more major road. Get them up on the sidewalk so that they can safely cross in the crosswalk and not, be merging into traffic like, children or other bikers, anyone who really wants to use the sidewalk that would feel safer doing that. Yeah. Well, yeah, in general, people ask about the bike ramps because they see a lot of other bikers not using them. And I like to distinguish that it's not, it's not always going to be used by every biker, but it's there just for safety to cross the street.
During construction, when people put their waste cans out, recycling cans,
Mhm.
that would be in the way.
So that's, if it's going to be in the work area, that's the contractor's responsibility to make sure that the garbage truck can pick up those receptacles. Yes.
And then I just need your contact.
Yep, I'll give you a business card.
And I got like it. I'm done.
Awesome.
Is there, or will we have access to the detours ahead of time? For those of us who are on the adjoining streets for cars that are gonna be rerouted off 11?
Yes,
They tend to be quieter streets with lots of kids playing around, so
Right,
we
right,
could
right.
make the neighbors aware.
yeah,
That'd be really useful.
so that, I'm not sure, minimum notification time, I can look into that. Do you know?
Minimum notification, generally, I think it's 48 or 72 hours. I
Okay.
can't remember exactly.
So we give as much notice as we have, some things are in flux throughout construction, when they get things scheduled. But we'll give as much notification as we possibly can for that.
Can I make a follow-up question / comment on that? Is that, so for the 900 South reconstruction, I subscribe to their, the updates.
Mhm.
And that is really helpful because it tells us what to expect on a week-to-week basis, like,
Yes.
you know, up to the moment, what's planning
Mhm.
and is there the same subscription thing?
There
for
is.
Okay, so I
Yes.
want to highlight that for sure.
Okay.
At their website that everybody in ELPCO can sign up to get in their own emails,
Yes.
updates on the project.
So for that, if you are looking at the screen on the bottom, there's the email address. Sorry, that's hard to read. I changed it to white. There we go. Okay, so 1100east@slcgov.com. If you want to subscribe, if you just send an email saying updates, anything like that, you'll be added to the list. And once we're in construction, we'll be sending out weekly
That's great.
updates for that.
Yeah, those are the best. Great, thank you.
Yes.
And I see that Alicia's putting that in the chat right now. So, I have one more comment from the meeting on Wednesday, the
Mhm.
open house. I did talk at length with the construction crew,
Mhm.
and they said that they would have an individual on site the entire time.
Mhm.
And that they really would like neighbors who are experiencing a difficulty, like, for example, if there's something blocking their ability to get into their driveway on accident or something,
Mhm.
just to not worry about flagging one of their directors down and just asking them to help at any given point, rather than going through the whole process of calling, to just really feel comfortable, asking for the manager on the street at any given.
Yeah, so they will have an on-site superintendent. His name's James Beck. And I will also be on site, not all the time, but pretty often. And I'll say I'm pretty easy to find a construction site. So also feel more than free to flag me down, especially because I'm not going to be operating machinery and some of them might be. So that would be one word of caution. Feel free to flag them down, but just be aware that it is an active construction site and there could be dangers that you might not think of.
Excellent point, Megan.
Yes, so feel free to flag me down as well. These contacts on the bottom, the first phone number there, 385-743-8405, that's our hotline. That goes to our public information team and they will get you a response. But obviously, if you're experiencing something and they're right outside, we want to resolve any issues as soon as possible. So, whatever chain of command we need to go through, we're more than happy to facilitate that on site. So yes, you don't have to go through the hotline. But again, if you get home from work one day, no one's on site and you have a question, that's a great time to use the hotline. They'll get back to you within a day. The email's also really easy. I see all the emails that are sent there. They'll likely be responded to by someone else, but all the stuff is constantly monitored. So we're there to make this as pain-free as possible. Obviously construction, there's a lot of challenges with that and we recognize that, but we're here to get through it together and we're gonna have a really nice looking street at the end of the year. So we're excited, but yeah, we're here to help.
Great.
Thank you for
Yeah.
making the street calmer and safer.
Yeah,
Less bumpy.
yeah, I'm excited to ride on it to work.
I wrote on it here, so I'm excited.
Yeah. Exactly, so.
So the Salt Lake Marathon along the street, and I was actually walking the dog early in the morning.
Mhm.
The bikers come first. This one biker goes, I should have used my mountain bike.
Yes.
And the other biker goes, why? Because the road's so rough. He goes, yeah.
Yes, I've seen the Shoreline Trail in better conditions than 11th East. And yes, we just have, half a year left and it's gonna look really nice. And the safety improvements obviously are something to get excited about. Along with the storm drain improvements, curb and gutter. There's a lot of curb and gutter that's just completely missing from, trees and whatnot. So that will help drainage because I know that you guys experience a lot of ponding in the gutter. I've seen it. So we're fixing that as best we can. There's budgetary constraints, this project can't touch everything, but we're doing as much as we can given those.
Great. Yeah.
And I'll also say, none of you asked, but I've been asked a lot about if we're removing trees. There's no trees that we're planning to remove up towards Night South. There is a section that I'm going to be pulling the curb and gutter out a few inches because the trees are encroaching on that so much that curb and gutter can't survive there. Trees are a lot stronger than the concrete. So we are not planning to remove any trees. Obviously, if something happens on site and, we find a dead tree that's going to fall down, there could be site conditions that change that, but absolutely, you're not planning to remove any of this time. So, yes, and urban forestry has been out there and they've evaluated, so we don't foresee it either, but I just add the disclaimer.
I really appreciate your well-rounded presentation because I think you covered almost everything that we would probably want to know, but we wouldn't think to ask. So
I did actually have one more plug. Our Livable Streets program, the traffic calming program has actually started up. We're working on the first 4 zones right now. And actually one of the zones is nearby in the heart of Sugar House. And then I do believe there are some zones coming up in, I don't know, the distant future, but I did want to make you guys aware of the fact that we're going to be out in the community pretty soon to come visit y'all and figure out how we can calm traffic on the residential streets, the ones that get missed by these giant reconstruction projects.
right. Okay.
Yeah, I live on a street that people love to jog down. I'm on Harvard and they love to jog down from 13th because it's such a bottleneck. And they slide down that street.
It's on a hill too, and it really is.
Yeah,
very-
Yeah, we'll see how the McClelland Trail project hopefully solves a lot of that speeding. I've seen it a lot on those cross streets. And, you know, in the future with something like the Livable Streets program, see if that's an appropriate treatment for additional streets because it is a widespread issue. And obviously we can't build everything everywhere, but you know, slowly we're trying to figure out the best fixes to it. So it's a tough thing to figure out because people will speed through a lot, but
Yeah, speeding is
but yeah, so keep us, you know, let the transportation division know if you're having specific issues because they're always tracking that for future projects.
right. Yeah, and we've actually a couple of requests have come in to put in the speed radar signs. So I mean, you know, if you ask us to do that, we'll go out and evaluate it and see if that's something that can help. And those are generally pretty helpful. So and then also I should give you the web page for Livable Streets. It's slc.gov.com/livable streets. Yes, that's the one.
Okay, one last plug
Yes.
on the speeding issue, just to make sure that everyone remembers that SLC Mobile is the best way to respond to speeding or to ask for help for regular speeding in your neighborhood. And then these guys actually do get noticed if there's consistent problems. So Marnie, you might want to. Okay. All right, well,
All
thank you
right.
so
Thank
much.
you so much. I'll give you my business card and I'm sure I'll see you guys out in
Great.
all the construction traffic, but at least we see the end.
All right, so
Thank you.
if everybody can hang on, especially from the board, we have some ELPCO business. I'm not sure we can conduct it depending on how many people we have, but we can try. Are you gonna hang out with us or? Okay, great. Thank you for coming again.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Feel free to reach out anytime. Okay?
Thanks, Keegan.
I don't know if you got one of these yesterday. Leave that with you. If anyone else needs to, yes, of course. Thank you so much. Great. So, yeah, so I'm in the engineering division, so I work on projects that transportation passes along, and then I see through the construction, just something to keep in mind.
That's what we do. We kind of design it and hand it off.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much for having us.
Give me the name or address of the app again, so I can put that in the chat.
Of the what?
Yeah.
Oh, SLC Mobile.
That's-
Yeah. yeah.
Yes,
Yes, that's
it's very
how
important.
everything. Yeah, so.
I just
Yeah.
kept typing gov and it's like, it's not working.
No, that's good. All right, so who we have left in the room is because we have a majority of board members. We have to take certain changes according to our bylaws to our membership. Unfortunately, our members have logged off at this point, but because we've given notice, you know, to our membership to come and hear this, we're still able to conduct business tonight. It's very minor. And I'm going to turn the first article of ELPCO business over to, again, David Jones.
Thank you. So we had talked about the amending and restating our corporation. And I sent out a couple drafts with the most recent one. And I want to particularly appreciate Michael's comments because he had some really good ones. But I think when I first read the Articles of Incorporation, it was really along the idea of you and I are new, Mark. And I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out really what is this entity that we've decided to join.
Yeah.
And so it was helpful to read the Articles of Incorporation. I immediately realized, well, there's a few things in here that just don't seem to fit the reality of that. And the first one was the boundaries. And then looking at the rest of the articles, a lot of it is just, I would say it's housekeeping in many ways. So the main revisions that I think that were made to it were that the geographic boundaries for ELPCO were corrected and clarified, and that the list of corporate officers that we have are in compliance with what the bylaws are. And as an aside, after we approve these articles, and then these articles, we really need to work on the bylaws and better identify our processes and procedures, I think.
Can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question? Does this require any new declaration to be submitted? And maybe this isn't the purpose of this conversation. The other thing I wanted to ask though, and I know that we're getting established in a not-for-profit entity, right? And so does any of this need to occur in sequence, I guess?
I think it
Because
does.
it needs to be filed in state, and I only asked because I went through this recently, as I mentioned, on a different thing. To update our bylaws and articles of incorporation. The documents had to happen in sequence. I had to sign, and then this document had the reference. Anyway.
Exactly, Marty,
Yeah.
you're
So,
right.
okay, you got that.
So this is
complexity.
the first
This is
step.
the numero uno. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I am not a lawyer. Clearly, I had a lawyer helping me with this, but. You
Yeah,
are.
once you do your articles and then you can do your bylaws. And then when you ask for the IRS to provide you with the nonprofit status, they'll want to see your articles and bylaws. So.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good.
What are some of the other provisions that we have in here?
So just to be clear, ELPCO has been functioning as a full nonprofit, right?
Mhm.
We are just now going for our tax status change at the federal level. And we need to apply. So we need to make some changes to reflect ELPCO in 2023 rather than ELPCO in years by when these were first established. I think what that was like 2005 or something.
It's I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
But I'm
so-
almost kind of big about it.
So that said, that's why we're going through it. So. go
So
ahead.
we had, one of the things we added was that one of the purposes was for charitable and educational purposes. That's something that they look to see. I think the IRS will give a nonprofit status to any entity that does charitable, educational, religious,
Scientific.
scientific, so they kind of, those are called keywords. So that's why I just added those.
Okay.
The provisions that are identified in blue were really kind of added with the thoughtful comments by Michael. One of the purposes initially said it was to preserve and improve the residential sections of Salt Lake for family living. I thought that we should do more than residential, so we included business, institutional, recreational, and it's not just for family living, whatever that means.
Mhm.
So there was, I think all the other revisions are pretty self-explanatory. The only I wouldn't say it's a hiccup, but a new development occurred today, and evidently there's two others, community councils that would like for our boundaries to include Liberty Park. And I haven't talked to anybody,
So that
but
everybody's council includes Liberty Park?
Yeah.
Is that the idea? No.
well,
No. Yeah,
I
so
mean, the ones that are bordering, I
Yes.
guess,
Yeah.
the relevant.
so I think we need to have that discussion.
right, so we're
And
gonna
I'm not
table
sure-
this tonight.
Okay.
Because there are a couple of other things that came up that we needed to address.
Yeah.
And they were so
Good.
last
Then
moment.
I'm happy to hear
Yeah.
that, because while I think these amended and restated articles
Yeah.
are ready to go with this new development, I think that needs a little more discussion than just, at least for me, I need to think about it for more than 6 hours.
Yeah, and I also have some information about some things in here that didn't come to us until the last moment. So we need to, we're gonna go ahead and table this for tonight. But I really wanted to thank you for going through this work, and by our next meeting, we're gonna hope to have something that's ratifiable so that we can apply right away, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then just FYI, I plan on starting working on the bylaws, so if anyone's got some great comments that they, and the bylaws to me are kind of put in writing the way you want to operate.
How you make decisions and.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we
you
have-
know, it's a pretty good outline, or it's a pretty good, we've got bylaws right now, I mean, the sections are pretty good, they talk about membership and your meetings, officers, and just you can change or add that as you need to. The bylaws do require, they talk about the will of ELPCO is done by its members,
Mhm.
and that you can't, the board can't just automatically change these articles, and automatically change, you gotta actually go to the members, this is a members meeting, we have to go on the quorum for those members meetings, there's at least 5, I think it says 5 board members and 5 just members.
Mhm.
So we really need to have people show.
Members of the community.
Yeah.
Right.
And that won't be a problem. It
Okay.
just, it's just been very hard with the town hall one day and then, 2 days later. So, we have a lot of community members that are
Okay,
with
this is my
us.
first
Yeah,
in-person meeting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's just that town hall kind of threw us off because basically we covered a lot of the same information. So that's a good thing. But I just want to be clear,
like
That-
100.
but we are still live on Facebook. Just remember, I just want you guys to remember that we're live on Facebook. So there are people who are potentially out there listening to us right now. So the discussion is really helpful. But I want to remind you of the process that as a board we decided on. Is that we will be working on the articles and the bylaws in a committee. So rather than having it be the entire board working on this, the committee consists currently.
Oh, Mike, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I wanted to say something whenever there's a chance.
Okay. Currently consists of David, myself, and Nancy. And anybody can join the committee that, we meet pretty regularly. I mean, Nancy is helping her family, but we do connect regularly. So this committee is, a working committee. So, anybody is welcome to join. So I just wanted to remind, Mike, go ahead.
I need to go. So I just wanted to hang on in case you need to vote on something, but I'm kind of out of time.
That's great. Yeah. Have a
Do
good
you need
night.
to vote on anything? Are you
No, we're
sure?
good. Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. All right.
Thank you, Mike.
We're in a table.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, have a good night.
Good night.
See ya.
I didn't actually notice that Mike had checked out of the meeting and then come back into the meeting. So that was my bad because I didn't realize that he was gone and came back some point later. So we can fill him in later. But in reference to what we just talked about, we don't have a formal meeting time. So much of this will be done through email. Much of our committee meeting is through email, but it does require a lot of back and forth. So if we're done with this business and it's tabled, we will check in with our community and try and get them to the May meeting in person or online. I'm going to move on to the expenditures part of the evening. And I wanted to introduce Marnie as the chair of our neighborhood boost grant. She has put together a proposal that we spend our neighborhood boost grant money in increments of one grant for $1,000
Up to 1,000.
up to $1,000 with the ability to expand upon that during this year. And then another expenditure of $750 and a third expenditure of $250. We are not going to announce those boost grants this evening, but we just need to make sure that we have a quorum to be able to vote on this. We have a yes from myself, but Judy. So do we have a quorum?
How many is it for? Sorry.
How many's on the board right
Yeah.
There are officially 9. I believe 9 of
now?
us.
Officially 9?
Yeah.
5, are you on board now?
This is my third meeting.
So,
So even Jeanette's here.
We got a
And-
quorum.
right, so we have a quorum and I can entertain a motion.
I'll second it.
Tell me what the motion is.
Oh, the
the-
motion is
That's what she announced.
The
the
1,000
expenditure
strategy
allocating those
for
amounts
for boost.
for the boost grants. Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion from me, a second from Marnie, and all in favor? So that passes. So Marnie, proceed as your committee.
Okay,
You know,
and I just
absolutely.
want to also say thank you for reviewing them and just, you know, giving your thoughts. You guys gave some insightful feedback and thanks for your patience with me my first time. So it was really helpful.
That's great. It's really nice to see a committee, really up and running and then just hear about what you did after. Very impressive. I'm glad that you guys worked. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
okay, so the second expenditure that we have to talk about tonight is that back in December, we took a straw poll to replace Christina's 10-year-old computer with an ELPCO laptop that can be updated because mine is too old. The operating system cannot continue to update, unfortunately. So we do have the Zoom subscription, which I cannot update. And we have our YouTube subscription, which I cannot update. So we voted at the last board meeting to okay that expenditure. And since we have a quorum tonight, I want to make it official. Can I have a motion?
A motion that we purchase, that ELPCO purchase a computer for ELPCO purposes. Do we need a limit on the amount? Do we have an idea? Up
I would
to-
say up to 2,000, do you know, for
Are
the,
you looking for a Mac or?
yeah, we've talked about a Mac. That was,
My motion include up to 3,000.
Okay. okay, great. Up to 3,000. Do I have a second? Okay. All in favor? Okay. All right, that motion passes. Do we have any other business that we need to discuss tonight?
Anything else on that picture that circulated?
Michael's in charge of that, so I think we'd have to talk to him about it. The expenditure is less than what we need to present at this meeting, so we don't need the board has already passed that and it will be reimbursed. I do want to say one thing in parting. At the May meeting, I want to spend some more time introducing our board and our committee members and start talking about the committees that we formed because we have committee chairs. So I believe it's a good time to start entertaining, bringing non-board community members in to potentially participate in some of these committees. And of course, we can talk about this further as a board through email and phone, whatever, text. But I feel like, this is going to be a good way to get our community more included in what we do here. Does anyone have any discussion on that?
How do you do those things? I mean, does any committee lead just determine how they're gonna do it, where they meet? How often, who's gonna be on that committee?
Essentially, it's just something that since we don't do that, we haven't done that in the past, we will have to make up as we go. We will have to choose, so we have a pretty strong land use committee, which Jeff is actually the, chair of that committee. We have Judy who advises it, and I, of course, do the majority of the work for that committee. But, Jeff is, is really the core of who I contact when we need to talk land use. Angie, so So it would be a good time to see if we have any community members. And I know Jeanette, once she comes to her 3 meetings and then we officially accept her as a board, is going to be interested in this.
Right.
So and Marshall's on that. So we do have a really solid land use committee. You notice that our, my good friend now, Alan is still here. He has been instrumental in the flooding, and keeping me updated on really a lot of the specifics. So I knew what to ask in order to talk to all those neighbors that are very worried in that area. So I'm trying to talk Alan into becoming part of, part of us. So we'll tell you where that lands at the next meeting, but again, Mike, it's just been incredible. I really appreciate your help.
Well, you're very welcome. I think it's obviously an important issue right now. Happy to fit in.
Yeah. So, Alan, I just want to be clear that as a member of this, this board or this in the room tonight, you had a vote on both of those items that we just passed.
I understood that to be a board call, and I'm
Yes.
not on the board.
It is not, it's a member call. So, this
Really?
is, yeah, so we already passed, we
I didn't
passed it
know
as a
anybody
board.
voting. Maybe they're all gone.
Well, no, but I mean, we are part of the membership too. So at a member meeting, the board becomes part of the membership. So to be clear, I just wanted to know, did you vote yay or nay on the expenditures for the
I didn't
neighborhood
vote
district?
because I didn't think I was eligible.
You are
As a
absolutely
retired
eligible.
lawyer, I'm fairly formalistic.
You're a member of ELPCO,
I
the
guess.
community. You
Okay,
live and
absolutely.
reside
I do
within
live within the border.
Okay. Yes. So
You're
did you vote yay or nay for the expenditures that we presented for the
I
neighborhood district?
abstained because I thought it was the board. I thought you were asking about quorum for the board.
Well, we were looking for a quorum for board and members, like
Oh,
we're,
I missed that.
Yeah. it was potentially just my communication. So, do you have any concerns about ELPCO purchasing an updated computer for
no,
meetings?
no.
Okay. All right.
All about board, right?
Okay, well, welcome
I move we
to,
adjourn.
welcome. Yeah, so we're going to say goodnight to everyone out there who's still on the Zoom, if there's anyone. And we're going to sign off the Facebook Live. Thank you to anybody who's been watching us tonight, and that will be recorded and put on our Facebook page. We are adjourning. Thank you.
Welcome to the end of it.
Yeah.